Is cricket in danger of becoming a batsman's game?
Cricket is a game where the balance between bat and ball is absolutely crucial. There are some concerns that maybe the bats are getting a bit too big, a bit too powerful, and that is putting the balance of the game slightly out of kilter. So it is something we want to keep an eye on.
The MCC has been the owner of the laws of cricket since the 18th century. If the MCC thought it necessary, what would be needed to enforce a law change?
In order for there to be a law change, we'd probably look at three things. Some statistical evidence to see whether more sixes are being hit, for example. Some scientific evidence, such as the work being undertaken at the moment at Imperial College to see whether bats really are more powerful. And then some anecdotal evidence from speaking to players and seeing how they think that bats are evolving and whether they have got too powerful.
Firstly, let's look at some stats. The fastest 100 ever scored in professional cricket was by Chris Gayle in last year's Indian Premier League. He reached his 100 in just 30 balls. However, Viv Richards' record in Test cricket, achieved in 1986, still stands. An amazing innings achieved without the influence of modern-day bats. But are more runs now being scored from fours and sixes? In 1991, the percentage of runs scored from boundaries in one-day internationals was 30.3%. But by 2013, this figure had risen to 44.5%, a significant increase. Now for the science bit. There are restrictions on the length of the blade and the width of the cricket bats. However, there are no such limitations on thickness. This has led to a major difference to the appearance of bats today compared to 20 years ago. Imperial College London have been testing the different designs of bats through the ages. I caught up with Professor Anthony Bull to see what they found.
The bats have a higher swing weight than more recent bats, so high moment of inertia, so they can impart more energy to the ball once you've lifted it up. Some of the bats, who have a slightly different design, have more weight on the outside, on the width and at the toe of the bat, which means that they're less sensitive to a mishit, so you can hit them anywhere on the blade and they will impart more energy.
It's now time to gather some anecdotal evidence. I asked players and coaches, past and present, whether they believe the sport now favours those with bat in hand.
I think it's got to a point now where the bats are naturally bigger, but if it just keeps going bigger and bigger, then it is going to just be so one-sided, it's going to be ridiculous.
It seems to me as though some of the bats are just, it almost looks unfair, but the ball just flies out of those bats.
There's a skill and an art to placing the ball, perhaps in the gaps for twos and threes, and if you miss-hit a shot, then you shouldn't be rewarded with a 4 or a 6, you should be rewarded with walking back to the pavilion because you haven't played the shot very well.
I mean, the top edges now go for 6, the scoops. I mean, scoops, shouldn't really be going 70 yards for a 6, but they are doing, so it shows you how good the bats are now at the moment.
But not everyone believes it's just down to the bats.
I think some of it's got to be down to fitness and strength levels. The boys really trying extremely hard, and there's the scientific support to their training, so I think that helps.
Batters are inventive now, prepared to take on shots that didn't do before, which makes setting fields challenging as a captain, makes decision-making challenging as a bowler.
In golf, for instance, technology improves, so they make the golf courses a bit longer, a bit more challenging, whereas cricket, we do the opposite. If the technology improves, and we actually make the playing surface smaller, so that certainly favours batsmen.
Statistics show that more runs are being scored from 4s and 6s than ever before. Recent bat testing demonstrates an increased benefit to the batsman. And anecdotal evidence suggests that while some believe cricket is a batsman's game, the bat is not the only factor. Whilst the lawmakers must decide whether a change is needed, for now, it's up to the bowlers to ensure the balance remains.